There is a secret art that few dare to name, though every human being has felt its pull. It is not brute strength, nor raw intelligence, nor wealth. It is something older, more primal, and infinitely more dangerous. The ability to make you see yourself in another person, and to become enslaved to that reflection. We call it emotional mirroring. From the very beginning of civilization, humanity has been haunted by mirrors. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, warned that what we take as reality are often shadows dancing on the wall, projected images that seem true because they reflect back what we already believe. Jung deepened this warning by pointing to the shadow, those parts of ourselves we deny, but which come rushing back to us when someone else embodies them. Nietzsche, with a sharper blade, reminded us that man's deepest drive is not merely to survive or seek comfort, but to expand, to impose form on chaos, to exercise his will to power. And yet, the will to power is never exercised in isolation. It must always meet the other. And what happens when the other does not resist you, but instead becomes your reflection? When they dissolve into a living mirror of your own desires, fears, and unspoken longings, that is when you fall into the forbidden art of emotional mirroring. It feels like magic. The charismatic leader who just gets you. The lover who seems to know your heart better than you know yourself. The manipulator who listens, nods, and reflects back every gesture and word until you forget where you end and they begin. You feel understood, recognized, even exalted, as though someone has finally seen you. But in truth, they have only mirrored you, reflecting your deepest wants back into your own eyes. This is not new. Ancient seducers, prophets, emperors, and cult leaders all wielded this weapon. They knew, consciously or instinctively, that people do not follow truth, they follow reflections of themselves. Even Freud, for all his obsessions, understood that the ego is drawn to what confirms its own image, even if that image is distorted. Imagine walking through a hall of mirrors. Some mirrors stretch your height, some compress it, some make your face grotesque, but among them you suddenly find a mirror that does not distort. It reflects you perfectly, gloriously, as you wish to be. Would you not linger before it? Would you not return again and again, feeding your soul on the recognition it provides? This is the psychology of obsession, and this is why emotional mirroring is forbidden. Because those who wield it can bypass reason, bypass defense, and slip directly into the vulnerable core of your psyche. They do not conquer you with argument, they do not threaten you with force. Instead, they enslave you with your own reflection. Philosophers have always feared this. Plato dreaded the sophists because they mirrored the desires of the crowd, flattering rather than teaching. Nietzsche despised herd morality for the same reason. It reflects back comfort, not growth. Sartre spoke of the gaze of the other, the way our identity is shaped, even suffocated, by how others reflect us. And Jung warned that until we integrate our own shadow, we will forever be captivated, even controlled, by those who mirror it back to us. But here is the dark truth: you cannot escape mirroring. From infancy, when a baby's first sense of self is formed by its mother's eyes, to adulthood, when lovers, friends, and leaders shape our self-perceive, we are always reflected. The question is not whether you will be mirrored, but whether you will notice how you are being mirrored, and whether you will master this force before someone else masters you. In this series, we will descend into the forbidden art of emotional mirroring. We will see how it works, how it traps, and how it can enslave you to obsession. But we will also see how it can be reclaimed, purified, and used for self-mastery. For what is forbidden is not always evil. Sometimes it is simply too powerful for the unprepared. So let us begin at the beginning. Let us walk into the hall of mirrors. Let us see how desire itself can be reflected back until it consumes us. Because if you do not learn how to see through the mirror will control you. If the introduction revealed the mirror as a weapon, here we must learn how it is forged. For the danger of emotional mirroring does not lie in its mystery, but in its precision. It is not vague magic, but psychology sharpened into a blade. To defend yourself and to master it for your own growth, you must first see how it operates. The first rule of reflection, I am you, in its simplest form. Mirroring begins with behavior. You lean forward, I lean forward. You smile, I smile. You cross your arms, and moments later, so do I. Entire studies in behavioral psychology confirm what common sense already knew. We like those who are like us. The subconscious, endlessly scanning for familiarity, rewards us with a flood of trust when we detect resemblance. But this surface level, gestures, tone, posture, is only the doorway. Real emotional mirroring moves deeper. It is not only what you do, but what you long for. The master manipulator does not simply copy your body, they copy your soul. Think of Freud with his theory of narcissism. He observed that we fall in love not so much with another, but with an idealized reflection of ourselves. The lover becomes a vessel for our own ego, and the seducer who understands this simply learns how to position themselves as that vessel. They watch, they listen, and then they reflect. They become your echo chamber, magnifying your desires back into your ears until you mistake it for destiny. The seducer's secret. Every great seducer knows that people are not drawn to the foreign, they are drawn to the familiar, dressed in mystery. When Cleopatra held Caesar and Antony in her orbit, she did not overwhelm them with strangeness, she embodied their unspoken fantasies. The siren song was not alien but familiar, wrapped in beauty. Modern psychology calls this matching and leading. First you match the tone, the rhythm, the world. Then, once the trust is cemented, you lead, nudging the mirrored desire toward your chosen direction. What begins as similarity becomes control. Robert Greene, in his Meditations on Power, captures this well. People trust their own reflection more than they trust any external truth. To reflect is to persuade without appearing to persuade. The victim believes they are following themselves, when in fact they are following you. The darker layer, mirroring the shadow. Jung adds a darker dimension. Beneath the ego's polished surface lies the shadow, our denied anger, lust, envy, and fear. Most people cannot admit these drives openly, yet they crave their recognition. When someone mirrors our shadow, they seem to get us in a way no one else does. This is why cult leaders so often speak to the forbidden. They say aloud what followers have only whispered internally. They mirror the hidden rage, the secret wound, the suppressed hunger, and suddenly the follower feels reborn, seen for the first time. What they do not realize is that their own shadow is being weaponized against them. Nietzsche saw this in the rise of herd morality. Leaders flatter the masses not by confronting their weakness, but by reflecting it back as virtue. What was envy becomes justice. What was fear becomes prudence. In this way, mediocrity sanctifies itself, mirrored into power. The subconscious echo, beyond the body, beyond the ego, beyond the shadow. Mirroring reaches into the subconscious. Experiments in neuroscience show that when we witness someone performing an action, the same neurons fire in our brain as if we performed it ourselves. These are called mirror neurons. They make empathy possible, but they also make manipulation effortless. If I simulate your gestures, your desires, your pain, your brain cannot help but feel a kinship. Here lies the double-edged truth. The same neurons that allow us to comfort a grieving friend also make us vulnerable to the con artist who mimics our speech patterns. Charisma explained. What then is charisma? Strip away the myth, and charisma is not an inborn light, but a skillful mirror. The charismatic individual makes you feel radiant because they reflect your light. You leave their presence not saying, "What a great person," but "What a great feeling I had around them." But do not mistake the glow for their power. The glow is your own, bounced back through the lens of another. The danger is that you begin to crave their presence, believing only they can provide that feeling, when in truth, they only mirrored what was already within you. Illustration: the echo of Narcissus. Consider the myth of Narcissus. He gazed into the pool and fell in love with his reflection. But the true tragedy is not his vanity, it is his blindness. He thought the reflection was another being, an other who loved him back. That is the same blindness in emotional mirroring. You are not falling in love with another. You are falling in love with your own echo, skillfully held up by their hand. The manipulator knows this. They do not need to overpower you, they only need to hold the mirror steady. Why it works? Why does it work so consistently? Because the deepest human hunger is not for survival, not even for pleasure, but for recognition. Sartre, in Being and Nothingness, described how our very being for itself is destabilized when under the gaze of another. We want to be seen, to be confirmed, and when someone offers that recognition, perfectly aligned, perfectly mirrored, we are hooked. From the baby whose first smile blooms when the mother mirrors it back, to the politician whose campaign rallies echo the desires of the crowd, the mechanism is the same. Recognition is intoxicating, reflection is irresistible, and so the mechanics of mirroring are deceptively simple. Reflect the body, reflect the ego, reflect the shadow, reflect the subconscious. Layer upon layer until the victim is no longer sure where they end and the other begins. But mechanics alone do not explain the full danger. For a machine can operate without enslaving. To see how mirroring becomes obsession, we must descend into the trap itself, where recognition becomes addiction and reflection becomes possession. We have seen how emotional mirroring works, body to body, ego to ego, shadow to shadow. But knowing the mechanism is not enough. To understand its true danger, we must see what happens when mirroring does not merely attract, but enslaves. For the forbidden art does not stop at recognition. Its end is obsession, the hunger for recognition. Every human being carries within them an insatiable hunger, the desire to be seen, not in fragments, not superficially, but wholly. Most of life starves this hunger. Parents are distracted, lovers are half present. Society reduces us to roles and numbers. We walk the earth half invisible, longing for the day someone might look into our soul and say, "I see you." Emotional mirroring exploits this hunger with surgical precision. The manipulator offers not just attention, but total recognition. They mirror your words, your desires, your fears, even your contradictions. For a moment, it feels as if the universe has finally answered your cry. The loneliness dissolves. You feel complete. And what is more addictive than relief from loneliness? The obsession spiral. Here begins the spiral. The more you experience recognition, the more you crave it. Like a drug, the dose must increase to maintain the high. Each new interaction with the mirror feels electrifying, but soon after you feel the hollowness again. The absence of their reflection becomes unbearable. You wait for their text, you replay their words, you analyze their gestures, their pauses, their glances. Why? Because each contained a reflection of you, and you fear losing it, as if losing them means losing yourself. In psychological terms, this is reinforcement. Just as a gambler is hooked by unpredictable rewards, The mirrored recognition comes in bursts, making you chase the next fix. The manipulator, knowingly or not, controls the rhythm, alternating between flooding you with reflection and withdrawing it. This is the essence of trauma bonding. Historical echoes. History offers grim illustrations. Consider Rasputin, the mystic who captivated the Russian royal family. He did not dazzle with brilliance or wealth, but by mirroring their desperation, he embodied their fears, their need for hope, their belief in divine intervention. The royals became obsessed, unable to imagine life without him. His reflection of their inner anxieties made him indispensable, even as his presence corroded the empire. Or consider cult leaders like Jim Jones. He mirrored the disenfranchised, the poor, the broken, offering them back their own pain, reinterpreted as holy struggle. He did not give them truth, he gave them their own reflection, polished into destiny. And in the end, that reflection led them into darkness. The lover's addiction. On a more intimate scale, think of the toxic lover. At first, they mirror your every dream. They love the same music, echo your values, share your ambitions. You feel an uncanny bond, soulmates. But over time, the mask slips. Yet by then, obsession has already taken root. You are not addicted to them, but to the recognition they once gave you. Like Narcissus, you are addicted to your own reflection. Freud would say this is the ego's romance with itself, dressed in another's skin. Jung would add that you are entranced because the other embodied your shadow, the parts you could not admit. Sartre would warn that you have surrendered your freedom, enslaved by the gaze of another, the gaze that possesses. Sartre's insight is critical. In Being and Nothingness, he describes how the gaze of the other transforms us from free subjects into objects. We begin to see ourselves through their eyes, reshaping our identity according to their reflection. And if that gaze mirrors us perfectly, we risk disappearing into it. This is why obsession feels like possession. Your sense of self no longer resides within. It is lodged in the other's mirror. You cannot breathe without their reflection. You do not know who you are without their gaze. The trap tightens. At this stage, reason falters. Friends may warn you, evidence may accumulate that the mirror is false, manipulative, even dangerous, but you cannot break free because you are not bound by logic. You are bound by recognition. Nietzsche understood this paradox. He wrote that men will often prefer lies that flatter their self-image over truths that wound it. The mirror does not need to be accurate, it only needs to be flattering. Thus the victim clings to the mirror, even as it destroys them. The psychological cost. The price of obsession is profound. The more you seek yourself in another, the less you develop yourself. Dependency erodes autonomy. Dopamine loops erode clarity. Trauma bonds erode trust. Over time, your reflection in the mirror becomes more real to you than your own inner voice. This is why manipulative relationships leave people feeling hollow. The mirror eventually shatters, and the victim looks into the fragments, wondering if they ever truly existed outside the reflection. The haunting truth. And here lies the most haunting truth of all. Obsession through mirroring is not imposed against your will. It is chosen again and again by the part of you that longs to be recognized. You participate in your own enslavement. You press your face to the mirror, knowing it is glass, yet hoping it will one day breathe back. The trap is not in the mirror alone, but in our hunger for it. If obsession is the trap, then awareness is the key. Yet breaking free from the mirror is no simple act, for the mirror is not only external, it is also internal. To escape manipulation, we must confront both the external hand that holds the glass and the inner hunger that keeps us staring into it. The first step, naming the mirror. Most remain enslaved to mirroring because they cannot name it. They confuse it for chemistry, destiny, even love. But when you learn to say this is mirroring, you take the first step toward freedom. To name a force is to strip it of its mystique. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminded himself daily to see things as they are. This is a corpse in fine clothes, he would say of emperors. This is a roasted fish, he would say of lavish meals. In the same spirit, when a lover, a leader, or a manipulator begins to mirror you, learn to whisper inwardly, "This is only my reflection." That whisper can save your soul. The second step, watching the withdrawal. Breaking free is not easy, because recognition is addictive. When you withdraw from a manipulative mirror, you will feel emptiness, restlessness, even panic. This is not a sign of loss. It is the proof of how deeply you were hooked. The pain of absence is the withdrawal of recognition. Here you must recall Epictetus, the Stoic who taught that freedom begins with distinguishing what is in your control from what is not. You cannot control whether others mirror you, but you can control whether you chase the reflection. The craving is not destiny, it is a test. The third step, shadow work. The deepest protection against manipulation is not suspicion, but integration. Jung warned that until we integrate our own shadow, we will forever be captivated by those who mirror it back to us. What does this mean in practice? It means confronting the parts of yourself you fear to admit. The envy, the lust, the rage, the wounds. Instead of waiting for a mirror to expose them, you turn inward. You face them yourself. You bring them into consciousness, not to indulge them, but to own them. A person who knows their shadow cannot be enslaved by it. They may still feel the pull of mirroring, but they recognize the trick. This is not destiny. This is projection. The fourth step, building inner recognition. Why do we hunger so desperately for reflection? Because most of us have never learned to recognize ourselves, our worth, our identity, our beauty. We outsource these judgments to the eyes of others, but true self-mastery begins when you learn to mirror yourself. This is not narcissism, but self-recognition. To sit alone in silence and say, "I see my pain. I see